Stay tuned for Wrestling with Computers, the show where we teach you about technology. So go get yourself a piece of paper and a pencil and turn on your computer, because we're off the world of technology and you're going to want to take notes. Welcome to Wrestling with Computers. We're back for the second part of the series on cybersecurity. We're back with Bob Shaker. Thanks for coming back.
My pleasure.
And this time we're going to talk about what you can do, how you can secure your systems, and some suggestions on how to secure your cyber reality. And again, to watch out for the bad guys out there. So let's talk a little bit. Last time we talked about a lot of the bad stuff out there and some of the technologies out there. Let's start talking a little bit about that box, that computer that's got that tube that goes to the internet, and let's talk a little bit about the user, the guy that's in front of that computer. What are some of the things that you should watch out for?
Yeah. So I said no. So. I said so. It's the user is the most important piece of protection that anybody has, whether it's at home or at your business. Making sure that they're educated enough to understand that they can be a prevention tool. Knowing that when software comes in, from a friend or not, that has a link in it, make sure you know what it is before you click on it. Yep. Whether that's sending an email back and asking, did you send this to me? There is a lot of emails that come out now that purport that it is your friend coming from your friend's email account and they're in trouble and need money. Yeah,
I know. I've got a bunch of those.
Yeah, and when you email, the best thing to do is call your friend. Are you in trouble and need money?
No.
That can put that to rest. Outside of your email as well, though, when you're using different online programs like Facebook or LinkedIn, and someone sends you an invitation, someone sends you a link, taking a minute before you reactively click on those links and really thinking about, is it grammatically correct? Are there spelling errors? Would I expect this person to be sending me something? At your business, a lot of small to medium-sized businesses allow access to social networking sites and all have email. Taking the same minute while you're at work, because it's easier at work to be distracted with work, to see, oh, I've got an email from a friend. I think I'll click on it and see what they sent me. Or, keeping Facebook open and getting a new chat message, because it doesn't have to be through the messaging system. It could be a chat message with a link and saying, oh, what is that? Just to quickly get it running while you're doing your work could be really detrimental. So it's about talking to your family, talking to your company, the people working there, showing them through whether it's a flyer that you put on everybody's desk in the morning or doing a 2-minute presentation to say, this is something you should know is out there. This is what could happen to you, and then reminding them. Doing it at one point in time is never enough.
Right.
Even if it's a monthly little reminder, hey, don't forget, don't click on weird things, and don't download stuff from the internet on your computer that you aren't sure came from a reputable source, go a really long way to keeping your how did you put it, your online reality?
Online reality, yeah.
Safe. Yeah,
because Brewster PC Solutions, my company, does that. We go into companies and it's interesting that you say that the biggest part is the user, and education is that biggest part. Before even we get into the technical part of securing your online presence, it's that education. You've got to take some responsibility. I was talking to a guy from Apple, and he said, you've got to take some responsibility, your online responsibility. He says, when he's talking to people about security, even with an Apple, but he was saying it's your responsibility. You can put all the security on that you can possibly put on a computer until you unplug it from the network. then they can get in, and all they need to do is suggest something to you, a little suggestion of click here, and you're done. And it gets in, and if they can get out, they can get back in, and the security atmosphere out there has leaps and bounds. Every in my industry, I get a call at least once a week from somebody who said, and one of the interesting things you said is making that call. You've never got an email from your brother Sam, who you don't even think has a computer, and you get an email from him. It takes, I dare I say, a little common sense, but it is you're inundated with mail, and one of the things that I've always talked about is we used to get mail in our mailbox, and we'd go through and say, that's a bill, that's trash, that's something else, that's an advertisement, and we'd put them into different piles, and we'd throw that trash away. Now we keep it. We keep it in our inbox and wait for that thing. Oh yeah, I might want to click on that. Yep. Yeah, it isn't. It's so. Let's talk a little bit about the technology. Some of the technologies out there, some of the software, and more. Like you said last time, it's not just antivirus anymore. Right. There's so much more to it.
Yeah. So making a good choice in what you're using for protection is important. Most homeowners don't even realize that they practice defense in depth without even knowing they're doing it. They're purchasing a router to plug into their modem, right? Their cable modem or their Fios modem. And that router has firewall security in it. Businesses are much more familiar with that. So doing defense in depth is important. And what that means is have multiple layers, right? You need a layer where that pipe you talk about comes into your company. Having some type of layer there, be it a firewall with appropriate rules, be it an intrusion detection or prevention system that's watching as that traffic comes back in to determine if it's good or bad and blocking it before it ever gets to the user, or something monitoring your email so that as the email comes in, those bad emails that should be in the trash get put in the trash before they get to the inbox. Right. That's really, really important. Stop it before the user, right, who is the weakest link in the chain, can even take an action. Then the next layer in is the server environment. And for homeowners, that's irrelevant for the most part, if maybe a media server being run. But in the server environment, you can't treat it like a desktop, right? Servers, from an awareness perspective, you shouldn't be surfing the internet from those machines. It doesn't mean that they're not connected to the internet. You may need that, but nobody should be on a web browser surfing the internet. The protection you put on that box should include something stronger than just desktop protection. Why? Because I can replace a desktop relatively easily. I can't replace that server easily. My apps are there. My database with all my customer information, with my transactional information is on that server. That server needs to be my private Fort Knox. So putting local intrusion detection prevention, putting in something called file integrity monitoring, which says, here's a file that's important to me. This file is my program that runs everything. I want to know if something happens to that file. Does somebody alter the file? Is the file deleted, moved? Has somebody touched the file? Knowing that gives you a level of protection far surpassing what a piece of malware can do, because I can now lock that file up and say, I know how that file acts, lock that file down. Nothing coming onto this server, be it a person or a pervasive piece of malware, should be allowed to alter this file or this folder.
That's a piece of software that would do that?
Yeah, you need a piece of software to install on the server that would then lock that down and protect that. So in the event that someone does get an infected computer, that you can move that computer off the network and your business continues running with the other computers that aren't infected. Right? Then you move down to the desktop, where we're very familiar, right? Some type of endpoint protection, whether it's Symantec, Norton, or someone else, and installing all the components. So a lot of people think that if you shut off components, it'll run faster. Right. A lot of today's technology is designed to be fast already. Install it all. Make sure you set it to update automatically.
Right.
none of the good guys want to steal your information
Right.
for any malicious reason. The information we gather is on the reputation of files, and you can tell us not to, but don't tell us you don't want to turn on automatic updates. Those are your protection, right?
I have clients who call me all the time, and I say, well, you haven't updated in a month. Well, it's going to slow down my system. I'm like, you're only as good as with 6,000 new viruses coming out every month, you're only as good as your last update. And that's a huge one, the update thing alone. And so when you install a security suite, what you're saying is there's different pieces of it.
Yes.
For example, there's the antivirus part.
Right.
There's maybe some malware part, and there's what's called a firewall. Could you talk a little bit about firewall, just to let people know what we're talking about? Because I know most people know about viruses and all that, but that firewall piece, I call it the traffic cop. If you could just talk a little bit about that.
So they're very misunderstood. You'll see them in movies, right, or TV.
Oh, yeah.
I'm hacking through the firewall.
Right.
Once I get through this, I'll be in. For the most part, getting through a firewall is not too hard anymore. What a firewall does is it says, okay, if when you surf a web page, or get an email or interact with the internet, you are asking for information to be passed across the wires to you. We call that traffic.
Yep.
And that's why it's great to call it a traffic cop. What it does is it'll say, is the traffic coming from outside of my company or home traffic that I've either requested or that should be here inside my home? When you go by a Linksys or a D-Link router, it has a built-in firewall, and there are things that are turned on you don't even realize are on that block what we know is really bad stuff. In the endpoint, in the desktop, those endpoint protection suites, they contain another firewall. And what they do is they watch what you're doing. So this person likes to play this game on their computer. This game requires this lane to drive its traffic on. I'm going to let that lane be open so that this computer can talk out on that lane.
Like a port, then.
It's called a port.
Yeah.
I won't necessarily let traffic back in on that port because it should be outbound only. So the firewall is the traffic cop, and it says here are ports, and there's 65,535 of those.
Yep.
And it says on all of these ports, I'm going to determine who can go and who can come based on what I know are good and bad about programs. So sometimes it'll block stuff that you don't want to block, like we were talking about earlier,
right,
where all of a sudden you can't get out to the internet,
right,
because it made a bad decision. Well, you need to kind of go in and tell it it's made the bad decision, because they're not omnipotent. They need sometimes some care and feeding, which is why you do what you do, because the insurance company should sell insurance.
Right.
You should fix their computer. Exactly. So that's what a firewall's doing, and you need, and even having firewalls in depth is important. Having one at the entrance point to your internet keeps the traffic out that's a waste of time. Having it at your endpoint makes sure that traffic that's coming in that's crafted in a way to be malicious doesn't get on your machine.
Right. And one of the things that is important to mention is that traffic cop watches and monitors stuff and going out as well. Some of the viruses out there, what they'll do is they'll attack your computer and get into your contact list. Right. And I've had firewalls warn me that you've had 6,000 outgoing messages through port 587 instead of 300, which is the usual port for Outlook to go out of. So that traffic cop is very important.
Yes.
It's sitting there at the entry point saying, okay, you can come in and you can't come in. So once something gets past that firewall, whether it's good or bad, it starts to interact with, it goes from the modem to the router through some sort of firewall there, maybe through the server, and then gets to that local machine. That's whether you have a server or not, that's that local machine that everybody's using it. So once it gets to there, there's software, security software. What's that doing? What's that main objective of that software? Yeah.
So the objective should be to identify, analyze, and either block or allow. So when that traffic finally makes it to the machine, there are multiple ways that today's endpoint protection can protect against that. And what good makers of those products do is go from fastest to slowest. The fastest is what we call line speed analysis, which means at the speed that things are coming over your network, what can we analyze that fast? So we look at signatures from a network-based perspective. If those signatures are bad, it gets dropped immediately and the traffic isn't even allowed in. If it's good, it moves on to whatever the next one is. And a lot of the good ones now use a heuristics engine. So it's the behavior. How is the thing that's coming at me behaving? Is it behaving good? Is it behaving badly? Behaving badly would be trying to install into my computer in places it shouldn't, trying to talk to a lot of computers at the same time that it shouldn't. And if that's happening, block that. Another one that happens when the network piece is happening is the antivirus that we had talked about last time, how that's out of date. Right. But once we discover it and put a new signature, which is why you need those updates, right, we can stop those right away because it's very easy to see that this program matches this file signature and just stop it. Right. After the heuristics and all those pieces of signatures are done, the new way that Symantec is doing it is the reputation piece, and you're seeing that more and more. Right. And that's, okay, it didn't match those. Does it match the massive database that we have that says we know this file is bad or good? If it doesn't, it's reminiscent of the way Amazon lets you click on whether or not a product was good. Right. When you go to buy a book and 20 people gave it 1 star, you're probably not going to buy the book. But if you have a book that has 5 stars and 1,000 people bought it, you're probably comfortable buying it. Right. Same with that file. The file comes in and it's new, like we were talking about in the last show, those attacks of 25 or 50 people. Those don't have a lot of visibility, so it's very hard to build a reputation. So you ask the user, do you know this file? And we present them with information. It was written by bad guy company. Yep. It was, are you sure you want this? Most users will say, no, I didn't. This is definitely not good. And we can use that to continue to build that reputation. So that's the last piece. So that reputation database is always building, and it's building from clients as well as, yes, as actual going out there and finding these things. Yeah, it's between our intelligence and our intelligence and what customers are seeing and doing as well, and reporting. Okay. Yeah, they're part of the solution. Yep. One of the other things that I tell my clients is, all right, you've got, whether it's an email or a file or a website, all right, you've decided that you want this email. It's got an attachment. Okay, so they always say, all right, so how do I know if it's good or bad? You know, what do I do now? Mm-hmm. You know, once I've got it, it's there. Is there a way that they can scan that one individual file that would make them feel a little more secure? Right. Yeah. Well, apart from calling me, of course. Calling you is not a bad idea. Most of the endpoint protection suites allow you to right-click on a file and scan it so that you can have peace of mind right away. Right. Most of them have even kind of gone beyond that. So they have hooks directly into your email programs. So from an email perspective, an attachment, it would be scanning that as it came in. You could, if you download a file from the internet, a lot of the newer stuff has a browser-based protection, where as you're working in the browser and it's already hooked into the browser. As you try to get a bad file, it protects it from manipulating the browser. Yep. You download a file, you can right-click on it and do a scan and check before you execute or open that file, right, and make sure that it's not a known bad file. Other than that, it really goes back to your operating system patches. They're not sending you, now granted for a business, sometimes you want to know that the patches aren't going to interfere with your applications. Right. Right. So you take a little time, not a lot of time, right, to understand that, but letting those be installed. Not only patching your operating system, but patching the other products that you use, whether they're Adobe products or Java stuff. Java sends one every day. And you should have it. It's there for a reason. They have teams of people working on these. So keeping your system up to date, keeping your security software up to date, when you get those files in, you should be comfortable that they're probably already checked, but right-click, scan it. Yep.
That is a huge thing that I think it goes back to what you said in the beginning. You have to have a little education. You have to look at this and say, is this good? Is this bad? And you've got to realize, I'm talking to my son all the time. He's like, why can't I go everywhere on the net? Why do I have to have Net Nanny on my computer? And I'm like, it's nasty out there. There's a lot of mean people who want to do you harm or get into your data and steal stuff. And I think education's a huge, huge part of it. So we've a lot of my clients keep asking me. They say, I've got the antivirus, I've got the firewall. Something got in. Why did it get in? How did it get in? And I think you spoke to me earlier that that's kind of like saying, why didn't my software work? Why didn't the security that I've got in place? What do you say to those people, and how do you attack that?
Yeah. There are so many different variables, but we should boil it down to the couple that are probably the most real, right? Or that happen the most frequently. So one is the bad guys, like we talked about in the last show, have lots of money.
Right.
So they're always looking for ways around the security software. If you give them what they're asking for by clicking on a link, they may have found a way to kind of side skirt some of the protection. That happens less and less, but it still happens, and that's why awareness is important, right? So that's part one. Is those guys are really always innovating,
right,
and we're running up on them, trying to make sure that we stay at least at pace with them, hopefully in the future different. The other way is you don't install the security software the way it's meant to be installed or configured.
Right.
You perceive or do have a real performance hit to the machine. So the first reaction is shut the security software off, not determine why that's happening.
Right.
And what it should really be is, okay, if I've installed the protection and this machine is now not running right, don't dial down the protection. Find out why it's not running right and make the right change. So it's, did you give them the key to come into the door?
Right.
Either by giving them the path around the security software, or is the security software really not configured in a way, either not kept up to date, not with the latest version, or with pieces turned off that has left you with a hole that they can exploit?
And it is, I talk to people every day, and this is one of their main concerns. They call me up and say, I got a virus. I installed everything you told me to install, and then and you do a little investigation, and 9 times out of 10, well, did you click on anything? No. All right, you've never clicked on anything? Well, I got a picture from Aunt Gladys, and I'm like, Aunt Gladys have a computer? I don't know. It does. It does. And I think one of the big things is education. And what do you see coming down the pike? What's the future of security, and where's it going?
Yeah, so mobile and something people like to refer to as cloud are really where the future is headed, both from security solutions as well as where the attackers are moving to.
Right. Cloud scares me.
Yeah, cloud is, should be.
Yeah.
One of the things that for most companies and homeowners that they need to be aware of with cloud stuff is e-wallets.
Mm-hmm. Right.
These areas where you're going to store all of your banking and credit cards, and you're basically taking all that information and giving it to somewhere. You don't know where.
Right.
What's the security of that place? And we're finding that attackers are starting now to take advantage of that, either by getting you, attacking the places where that information is vaulted, attacking you with fake e-wallet applications, or attempting to intercept what you're putting out there. It doesn't mean don't use them. It means use them wisely, know who you're doing business with. The big companies that are offering e-wallet services, do you know what they're doing? Are you reading the privacy policy? Are you reading some of the stuff that they have published so that you're comfortable? I mean, I'm pretty sure if I walk into your house, it's not a big pile of money sitting in the kitchen counter that I can just walk in and take.
Right.
So to think the internet is any more secure isn't. Yeah. And when we start taking our mobile devices, whether it's our phones, whether it's our iPads, or other tablet devices, and having inherent trust in those devices is really going to be a problem for people, and that's a big focus for us and for the security industry, is using the intelligence that we gather to protect mobile, to protect cloud, and make sure that as people gravitate away from their computers, that whatever they're using to interact with anyone on the internet, you know, businesses, business to business, that those areas where that information is traversing and being stored is safe.
Great. Great. Well, I want to thank you for coming. I think we've learned a lot about security and about that bad world out there. And thank you very much. And again, as I always say, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call my office or email me at wbrewster@Brewster PC Solutions. And keep using that technology. Be smart and look what you're doing and think about what you're clicking on. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again.